Tomorrow we begin to document and move the wreckage, and what I mean by document is there will be a number of photos taken, and our investigators will start to write down descriptions of what they see that is part of the wreckage.
Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board will conduct more investigations at Bradley tomorrow. This after they released new video today as crews surveyed all the damage from yesterday's deadly crash. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening, everyone. I'm Chris Pisano. 7 people were killed in that crash, 7 others injured. The NTSB holding a press conference earlier today saying they've looked at surveillance video from the airport showing the timeline of when the plane took off and when it hit the de-icing building, which was about an 8 minutes difference. Investigators are interviewing pilots with the Collings Foundation, who they say are all volunteers. They've requested training records for the flight crews and other workers on that plane. A full investigation is expected to take at least a year, although a preliminary report is expected in about 10 days. Also today, Connecticut State Police released the names of all the victims, 7 people killed, 7 hurt. And these are the names of the Western Mass victims: 36-year-old Andy Barrett of South Hadley. He survived. 56-year-old David Broderick of West Springfield is presumed dead. And 48-year-old James Roberts of Ludlow was killed in that crash. And tonight we're learning more about Roberts and his brother, who frantically tried to learn whether or not he survived the crash. Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos joins us now live, and he's been in contact with the family of James Roberts since yesterday, and he tells us how they are grieving and remembering him. James?
Chris, that victim is known just as Jim by his brothers, and since yesterday, many viewers have been following his efforts of his brother Joe, who was trying to find out what happened to Jim, who was on that flight that crashed. Now today, he received the tragic news that his brother is one of the 7 people killed in the crash.
It's just one of those things you never know. I mean, any given day you wake up, you just don't know what's going to bring, and you see things like this on the news, and you know, it's always people you don't know, and like I think my sister said it, now we are those people. And you know, I'm in shock right now. I just can't believe it. Hasn't sunk in, and it's not going to sink in for a while. And
Joe Roberts tells Western Mass News that he's numb after learning that his brother James Roberts of Ludlow did not survive Wednesday's crash. He says that he was at work when he received a picture of the scene after the B-17 vintage aircraft crashed at Bradley.
I said, you know, it's horrible. And then my other brother reminded that Jim was supposed to be, my brother Jim was scheduled to be on that flight.
And then a feeling of uneasiness kicked in.
I said, we got to find out who was on that plane. So I left work and stopped at my house, grabbed a few things, and by that time I heard there was, at Hartford Hospital, there was a counseling room set up. So I went there, and there really wasn't a lot of information.
He said he was told that 6 people had survived, but because of HIPAA laws, the hospital wouldn't release their names.
So I said, well, I'm going to ask you the reverse. Is my brother on that list? And they said no. And then later the detectives confirmed to me that he was on an unaccounted list. And then when they asked, you know, when they started to ask for dental records, you know, it's just, you know, it's bad.
Fast forward to Thursday. Joe says that his brother hasn't returned any phone calls, and his car is still parked where he left it before the flight. He tells Western Mass News that flight was something his brother was really looking forward to.
It was fairly expensive to go on it, so, you know, it's not something you're going to just do if you don't really like it. So, and my other brother was going to be on it, but he couldn't get the day off, and then they asked me to go. I wasn't able. I said I got to work. I just got so much going on.
A decision that ultimately saved Joe's life, but tragically ended his brother's. He's remembering Jim as a great artist, someone who loved comic books, Star Wars, and had dreams of making his own comic book. Joe says he's sad his brother will now never have the opportunity to fulfill that dream.
He was just a really, really good guy, only 48 years old. Never hurt anybody, very low-key, kept to himself. And you know, my brother, I love him. I'm going to miss him.
He says he's thankful that their last interaction was this past Sunday watching football and eating pizza, but he's heartbroken that unknowingly that was going to be their last time.
Well, eventually we'll get through this. I've been through it before. You learn to live in a new world, and now I got to do that again. It's just going to take time.
And Joe says that he's sad that him and his brother now aren't going to fulfill their plans of going to the Patriots game that they had tickets for later this month. And while it's hard right now, he says he's anticipating the next few days, weeks, and months to be the hardest, especially as the holidays get closer. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.